I think easy change to be made would be every day identifying your top 3 priorities that are going to move the needle to your big goals. And then those are the 3 things that you get done that day before you do anything else. So when we move into our day and we've got a to-do list of 20 things or more, we are instantly overwhelmed and we are instantly just hustling. If we can move into our day and go, what are the 3 things that I must get done today? And those 3 things must be tagged to your long-term goals, and you focus on those, then every day you're going to turn up with clarity on the 3 things that are going to move you closer to your bigger goals. And then you can move on with all the other things on your do list. All of the other little bits and pieces that we have to do in our day to fulfill the client work or help a staff member or whatever those other bits and pieces are doing.
Welcome to the Baggage Beacon Healing Hearts and Minds podcast. I'm your host, Tami Mahmali, a spiritual guide and hypnotherapist. I'm here to guide you on this healing journey toward holistic and spiritual well-being with ease. Each week, we will dive deep into the realms of self-discovery, offering you valuable tips, strategies, and actionable steps to help you restore harmony in your mind, body, and soul. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today's guest is Sandra Julian, a seasoned business coach and a mentor with a rich background in corporate management and digital course creation. She's a mom for 3. Sandra spent over 20 years running a successful company before diving into coaching. She's passionate about guiding business owners to find clarity, balance, and success through mindset and strategy. So today we're gonna dive in to discover how balancing business strategies with a positive mindset can reduce stress, enhance your work-life harmony, and pave the way to long-term success. Welcome, Sandra. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, me too. I'm thrilled to have you with us today. And let's dive into some fun and insightful questions to help our listeners get to know you and your amazing work. And maybe it's going to help someone, especially if you are trying to build this amazing business or you pivoting to another business and you want to learn how you can keep your energy, with your mindset you can get further in your business and set your goals and actually achieve them through consistency and determination. So Sandra, I was fascinated listening to you about your career journey from managing a company for over 20 years and diving into digital course creation and then coaching. How has your mindset shifted through these transitions that for sure are not easy? And what role has it played in your success?
Those are really good questions. And I think I'm still uncovering it all. But even in my 23 years of owning my business, the mindset that I've changed and adapted over the years, I can see the difference from when I very first started out in business and it was just all about the doing, what are we doing, how are we doing, right through to when I sold my business, I had to start thinking about how am I uncoupling my business from my personal identity, because when you run your own business, your business identity and your personal identity, they're so intertwined. And I think the mind that I had for such a long time was I am the business and the business is me. So in getting to the point where, I knew I wanted to action the exit strategy, I had to start thinking about what would my life look like without the business, without the identity that I've carried for so long. So I really had to dive into the beliefs underneath that. Why did I think the business was me and I was the business? Why was that connection so strong? And then thinking about what my life would be and who I would be without that identity. And that took a lot of work, a lot of diving into the deep-rooted beliefs that I had around my own identity, that would I be really valued without the identity of my business? What did I do when I wasn't working? And all of that mind, I really had to do some deep digging and some deep work on that and be very intentional and conscious about it. But I think that's just at the end, and before I sold the business. Now I have sold the business and I'm on the other side. I'm only like 10 weeks on the other side of having sold the business. And this last 10 weeks of a journey has been super interesting, because while I thought I was ready to dig the business from the identity, the last 10 weeks has still been the unraveling of that identity as a business owner and a team leader. So it's really interesting when you start examining your own thoughts and your own belief around who you are in relation to your business.
So this subject is really fascinating, especially
Mm.
for business owners and for people trying to start their own business, or people who just thinking about having their own business, to understand that as a business owner, all these fears gonna come up, but to
Mm.
learn how to deal with my mindset, how I can shift my mindset. But before that, maybe it's better to dive deep into thinking who you are, who you are serving, what's the problem
Mm.
you're solving. I love that you said, I'm actually not the business, and the business is not me.
Yeah. That's a really hard one when you've built your business from the ground up. When you had the idea, you put it into motion, you've been successful at it. I had a team of people operating the business. It's really easy to have that identity that you are the business and the business is you. And I think I'm probably not the only person that has that identity with their business.
You're not the only one. I did the
Mm.
same thing when I was running my art business. And then I had to shift because at some point I realized that that's not my calling. I had to go and dive deep and understand what I want to do, who I'm helping again, start from scratch, let go of the shame and the judgment I had about starting when I'm older. And I think when you finally get to and you understand how to do it, it's magical. But in the midst of it, while you're doing it, as you know, it feels lonely. It feels like you don't know what you're doing. There are a lot of moments that you want to give up. So, in your experience helping business owners, how do you guide them to shift from constant hustle to finding clarity and balance? For example, if you can give us an example of one mindset change that has made a big difference for you and probably your clients too.
Yeah, I think behind the hustle mentality is a lot of fear and scarcity. So we're hustling really hard because there's a fear of failure and there is a fear of letting the client down. And so we're hustling because we want to fulfill that expectation, usually put on us by ourselves. So when I'm working with a client, those are the questions that I'm asking. I'm diving into those questions. Who has the expectation to deliver? What is the expectation of yourself as the business owner? What is the expectation of the client? Have you clarified those two things? So when coaching, it's more about asking questions of the client that they have probably never asked themselves. So when we're in our business, we're just thinking about the how. How do I get this delivered? How do I get this done? How do I get the next client? How do I make money to pay payroll? How do I? Are lots of questions that business owners ask themselves. And when they're in the how to mode, they're in the hustle mode. So when we need to move from hustle mode into scaling the business, it means that there needs to become a shift in the mindset. So we're delegating more, we're understanding our own behaviors, and we're able to set better boundaries with our clients, ourselves, and our team. We don't necessarily understand that that's the path, and we don't necessarily understand that that's what's needed when we are deep in that hustle in that hustle mode. So I think first of all, it's about asking some reflective questions around how the business owner currently sees themselves. And when they can reflect on how they see themselves and their behavior that's creating the hustle, now we're at a starting point where we can start looking at what needs to change.
Putting the boundaries, understanding where we start, where we end, and asking ourselves how I see myself. So I know that you're all about implementing strategies and creating systems. How do you blend mindset work with actual practical strategies in your coaching to make sure that the clients not only have a plan, but also the right mindset to make it work? Because right now you talk to me about how you help them with clarity, put the mindset, and then practical tools, because sometimes when they are just starting it's hard, but in the midst of when you're already in the grove and we have the momentum, we are better. But for people who are starting, how they can incorporate these two?
Mindset is a way of being. It's a way of thinking. So we have to get our mindset and we have to be centered within ourselves before we can approach our business with the right energy to implement the strategy. If we aren't centered within ourselves and understand the way that we are turning up and the energy that we're bringing to our business, if we don't understand that, then when you move into your business, you're going to be scattered. It's not going to be focused. You're going to be like trying everything and maybe getting nowhere. So first of all, it's around where is your mind currently? Because in order to get clarity, we have to dive into our own thinking and our own understanding of what we believe as the business owner to be true. Because our deep rooted beliefs actually show up in our business. So if we've got some beliefs around being organized, or we've got some beliefs around leadership, that we're not a leader, that we're no good at leadership, that's not our thing, how we show up to our business is going to be really challenging, because we have to show up for ourselves before we can show up for our business, before we can show up for our team. So we have to lead ourselves before we can lead anybody else. And so self-leadership is all about understanding ourselves, understanding what our strengths are, understanding what our purpose is, understanding when we work best. Like, when is our energy going to be the best in a day? What time of the day is your energy the best in order you can bring that energy to your business? Some people are really good at morning. Like, they are morning people. That's when they have their clearest mind and their best focused energy, and they can, spend 2 hours in the morning doing really good work. That's not me. I'm not a morning person. I can't get out of bed and get to work. My energy comes later in the day. So I've got to go for a walk. I've got to, have a shower, be settled, get my workspace organized. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get focused now. So it's about understanding you. And it's not subscribing to the 5 a.m. club, because there's only, some people subscribe to that and that they thrive in it. But if you're trying to be the 5 a.m. club and that's not how your energy flows, you just banging your head up, get up against the wall like continuously. So it starts with self-leadership. And then when you have self-leadership over who you are and how you're showing up for your business, now we've got the bandwidth to talk about the strategies in your business. Where is your business at in its journey? What is the next biggest thing that is going to move the needle in your business? Once you decide the strategy, then it's all in on the strategy and reverse engineering the how-tos. And it definitely takes some work, some reflection, some journaling, some understanding of yourself. And we can do this with strengths assessments, personal assessments, and really looking at what do we know about ourselves. And then both of those two things, they go hand in hand. I think I spent way too many years looking at what's my strategy, how am I moving my business forward, how. What I didn't realize is how my underlying beliefs were affecting what was happening in my business. Many years in the beginning, we weren't making a lot of profit in our business. And that's because I had a belief that if I kept my profits low, then I would pay less tax. And that's a good thing. Like in my mind, that was a good thing. That's not a good thing. Like the more money you make, yes, the more tax you pay, but the more good you can do in the world because you have more profit in your business. So it took me a while to dive into that understanding. Where did that belief come from for me? And why did I believe that? And what did I want to believe instead? So mindset of you as the business leader reflects in how you operate your business. So when there's a struggle in the business, usually there's an underlying belief in you as the business owner that needs moving as well.
I'm glad that you shared about your limiting belief because I had the same thing and I had to release that because it was hoarding my energy. Do you have a morning routine that helps you to gain the right mindset and come in and just be ready for your day? I know you're not a morning person still. You
Mm,
probably wake up early. Is there something that you do that help you to just be aligned with the right energy to start your morning?
mm. I like a slow morning. So now, when my kids were younger, mornings were a bit more chaotic because it was out of bed, breakfast, lunch packs, ready for school, in the car, drive to school, get to. So when I had kids, that was a little bit more chaotic, but I was always organized. I knew I had to be out of bed at 7 o'clock to be out the door with the kids by 8 o'clock for them to be at school on time, and then I would be at the office. But when I got to the office, my first half an hour was just sit, have a hot drink, get calm. Like, and I think I did that by natural instinct because I didn't really start to do any focused work until at least 10 o'clock. So I would spend that first just calmly looking at what's going on in my day, what's ahead in my day, let's have coffee, and then let's get to work. Now my kids are grown up and I don't do school runs anymore, and the kids are all self sufficient. So now I like to lie in bed. I like to wake up slowly, lie in bed for half an hour if possible, and just slowly wake up. Then hop out of bed and go for a walk, take the dog for a walk for at least half an hour. It's usually an hour. And if I'm not walking the dog, then I'm doing some kind of exercise, moving my body. Then it's a nice leisurely shower and a smoothie. Now, in and amongst that as well, and I'm not consistent at where this goes, but somewhere I will do a bit of meditation and a bit of journaling. And it depends on my mind at that particular time. Like if I feel that I'm calm and I'm ready and I'm good to go, I don't feel the need to do any meditation. But if I wake up and I've got a bit of a restless energy about me, then I'm like, all right, let's just stop. Let's do 10 minutes of meditation before we then start the day. And that just adjusts my energy more than anything and just puts it in a space where I feel like and then away I go. If I wake up in the morning and I've got 101 things racing through my mind, then I'll sit down with my journal and I will just brain dump, like just get everything out. Why am I thinking that? What's that thought going on? Where's that thought coming from? What do I want to do with that thought? And I just get it out of my head, put it on paper. And then once it's out of my head, it stops rattling around. And I feel like that I've dealt with it and I could potentially come back to it later. And I've explored the thought a bit more. Because when the thought's in my head, the same thought keeps going round and round and round and it just keeps rattling. But when I put the thought on paper, then I can go, oh, why is that? Where did that come from? What do I want to do with that? Why would I want to do that? And I start asking, it's like talking to yourself, it's like self-coaching yourself. Like, where did that thought come from? So I'll do that before I get out of bed, go move my body. So I suppose I judge part of my morning routine these days with how I wake up. What is my energy? What's going on with my body and my mind when I wake up as to what's the first thing I do before moving on with my day?
It's a process progress,
Mm,
not perfections. I used to do like meditation for 20 minutes. Now it's sometimes 2 to 5 minutes. It's not perfect
mm,
anymore. Some days I'm writing, some days I'm not writing. Exactly like you said, depends on my mood, depends on what I need. But when I started,
mm.
I did so many other things to help me to shift my mindset. Now that I'm consistent, I don't need as much time for morning routine. So just to talk about how important is it to do something that helps you to lift your mindset, help you to feel better. You don't need to be perfect.
No, and I think it's about feeling into your energy, because I think when we go, we're going to do 20 minutes of this and 20 minutes of this and 20 minutes of that, it becomes very rigid. And so then we think of it as a chore and we think of it as a have to do. And I think when you think of your centering practices as things that you have to do with a time limit, again, you start feeling resentful about it. It's when you can just lean into what you need when you need, and you know you've got a tools in your toolkit that you can go, oh, I need to do that today. I need to, I'm feeling this certain way. Let me use this tool, work through it, move on. Sometimes I'll spend 15 minutes journaling. Sometimes I'm like 40 minutes later and I'm still writing away because I've got a lot to say to myself, you know? So not putting a time limit works for me, because then I can feel as though I can just guess what's going on for me and then move on without having to sit to think, oh, 20 minutes is up, but I'm not finished, but I have to move on anyway. It makes me even feel more restless that I didn't finish processing what I had to process. So for me, I've been looking at how long does a morning look like for me before I can sit down to do any work. And usually it's about 90 minutes on an average. And the bits that go into that are different time lengths. So sometimes it's a 30-minute walk, sometimes it's a 40-minute journal, sometimes it's a 10-minute meditation, sometimes it's a 60-minute walk. It's all varying, but for the most part, my morning takes about 90 minutes before, I'm sit down to do any work.
The way you started this podcast talking about how important is it to know ourselves, then we
Mm,
feel more compassion. We're not doing it because someone else is doing it. We're doing it because
mm,
our soul needs it intuitively with our
yeah.
energy. We're just flowing freely without feeling like a must or have to do it,
Mm,
just flowing freely with the energy of life. And
mm,
as I'm listening to you, I get that you're big in paying attention to your energy and intuition, and that it is part of your coaching. How do you
mm.
help guide clients to trust their inner voice and use it to achieve their goals, especially if they're used to operating through with their limiting beliefs, or let's say relying on external validations?
That's a big journey to go from external validation to listening to your intuition. But that's what the coaching conversations are for, right? So coaching conversations, they differ from mentoring conversations. And how I look at those two things differently is a coaching conversation is about me as the coach asking questions and waiting for the person that I'm working with to respond, and then reflecting what they've just said to them and then asking more questions so that they can see what they've said and then have that reflected back to them. Usually, that reflection of what they've said gives them the biggest aha moment, because they've not had someone reflect their own thinking back to them. And when someone goes through that they have their biggest own learning. They learn the biggest things about themselves from themselves. So it's really just about having a conversation and reflecting and being able to ask the right questions that opens the door to go deeper. Whereas for me, a mentoring conversation is more around sharing of information, sharing of business experience that someone else could relate to and then learn from. So it's a shared experience in a mentoring relationship, is how I look at it. compared to a coaching. And I suppose this is the little piece that's frustrating, is every cat and dog in the world at the moment is calling themselves a coach. I'm a social media coach, I'm a marketing coach. A coach is truly someone who will get into conversation and learnings from the person that they are working with, so the person is learning from themselves. They have the wisdom inside them, they just don't realize it. And the coach is the person that can draw that knowledge and that wisdom from them and reflect it back, so they can learn from their own knowledge and inner being, that they have what they need inside them, and it can be drawn out and reflected back in this kind of circular motion, if you like. Now they're listening to their inner selves a lot more than their external self. So that's how I like to think about coaching, and that's all my learnings about coaching. So I've been through 2 coach certifications. One was a transformative coach certification, one was a business coach certification. Both of those programs talk about coaching in this way. It's about coaching the person to understand themselves in order to find their path forward. Because no one actually knows your path, only you know your path. But you might need somebody to help you find your path, not tell you your path. So the external validation that we look for more often than not is for someone to tell us our path. Coaching is about having someone help you draw your own path, which is listening to your heart and your intuition. So your head, your heart, and your gut form your intuition. And when you listen to that, then you can move forward in a way that brings you fulfillment.
So, for business owners feeling stuck with, let's say, bottlenecks, how do you help them overcome these challenges with focus on both the practical strategies, all this spirituality you talked about, the mindful? What are some common issues that you see and you can help people that are listening to understand that they're not alone?
Yeah. Dealing with bottlenecks, usually that comes down to the business owner wanting to control everything. They want to control the quality of delivery to the client, which creates the bottleneck. And so there's an easy solution, right? It's delegation. So to move the bottleneck, we need to delegate. But delegating isn't necessarily that easy, although it sounds super easy. It's like you make a list of things that you can delegate, you get a person on board, you show them how to do it, you're done. It's not that easy, because our mind stops us from delegating. Because our mind is thinking, but this is only going to take me 2 minutes. I'll just quickly do it. So it's not going to take long. Let me do it. There's that piece of the mindset. Whereas the mindset change in that one is, yes, it's only 2 minutes, but when I delegate to somebody else, they're going to learn how to do it. And that 2 minutes plus 2 minutes plus 2 minutes plus 2 minutes throughout the day is going to accumulate. Now I have an hour of my time back because I gave up the 2-minute job. So that's usually the first mindset shift that someone needs to make, is just, it's quicker to do it myself. The next mindset shift that someone will have around the bottleneck is, I can't find anyone to do it. I want them to do it my way. I've tried 2 people and both of them screwed it up. So I just do it myself. So then it's about finding the right people. Are you hiring the right people for the right job? Or are you hiring anybody and expecting them to do the job that you give them? So right people, right seat in your organization helps move that bottleneck, because now you're delegating to a person who's better at the job than you and enjoys it. So again, every bottleneck situation that you have in your business will come back to a mindset. So we have to deal with the mindset and then implement the how. So, all right, the mindset is, why aren't you delegating? And then you'll get a list of answers to why I'm not delegating. Okay, let's choose one. Let's choose one of those reasons. Let's tackle that. If we got this, how would you feel? Great. If I got that person and they did it way better than me and I didn't have to show them what to do, I would love that. Great. work on that strategy. Let's employ the right person to do the right job, and then we can delegate. So, yeah, bottlenecks in the business, they start at mindset. Why are you not delegating? And let's identify those mindset blocks, and then let's move into implementing the strategy that will overcome the bottleneck that's currently it's being experienced.
That was good even for me. I have someone that's working for me right now, and I just love this person. And he has to leave, and I see how I want now that I am moving forward to build system. But then my mind coming and telling me, even though I need someone, let's just do it yourself for a while because he's leaving and it's going to be difficult to teach someone else. But after listening to you, it's like, why did you use this example?
Mm,
And I'm understanding how important is it to find the right person and just
yeah,
move forward, no matter how much I like the person that worked for me before. So thank
yeah.
you for that. I needed to listen to that. I was so impressed with your transition from corporate events to coaching. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to make a similar shift in their career or business, someone that was
Mm,
want to pivot?
yeah. Of things for me, really, when we're talking about like we want to move our business. So, because I was in the events industry, when COVID hit, my business disappeared pretty much overnight. So, for 6 months, I had to let go of all of my staff or reduce the hours that they were on. All of the clients cancelled their events because they couldn't move forward. So 6 months we spent not having an income. And it could have been very easy for me at that point to shut my doors and close the business and go, all right, that's done. What next? But instead, I was like, how do I keep the business going? So, how do I pivot that business? So, that was my mindset at that time. So, rather than go, oh, woe is me, like victim mentality, the world just shut my business down, like I could have really crawled into a dark hole and thought the world just had it in for me because it just took my business from underneath me. Whether that is my personality, my ambitious nature, I was like, now what am I going to do? Like, what's next? Like, how am I going to overcome this? People still need events, they'll still need to connect, but how are we going to do this? What does this look like? So I spent that 6 months looking at how can I run a virtual event? What does that look like? I did look to America for some examples on how to do it, what was important, what were the key elements. And then I went and approached a couple of my clients and said, okay, how about we do this? And I pitched a virtual event and had all of this is how it would work, this is what it would mean, this is the technology we would use, this is how we would create engagement and program and so I had all of the elements and then I just pitched it. And I had 2 clients say yes. They were like, Sandra, if you believe that you can do this, we believe in you, let's do it. And so that's how I pivoted that business, because my mindset didn't go into victim mentality, but went into problem solving mentality to what could I do next to keep my business going, to keep my people employed. So the mindset is always one of be curious about what's next, be curious about what's possible, and then go looking for the next best step. Because once you take one step, you'll take another step, you'll take another step, and you'll take another step. You don't necessarily know, but you just have to start walking down that path with optimism that you're heading in the right direction. And you might get halfway down that path and go, this isn't where I really hoped it would go. Maybe if I just take a, sharp turn left and see where that takes me. But it's about always being curious. And so same thing happened really when I was selling my business. I got to the point where I'd said to myself, is this the business that I want to do for the rest of my working life? And the answer to that question was no. So then I was like, all right, if this is not the business that you want to do for the rest of your working life, then what do you want to do? And that was I don't know. I've got no idea. So I just let that simmer, let that, just lead me down a path like, what could that look like? And it led me down a path of online business. It led me down a path of a whole new world that I never knew existed. And that's when I started to tap into online courses and online training. I wasn't necessarily super successful at that. And I think that was because I was being pushed and pulled. I was trying to still operate my business while trying to learn something new, get something new off the ground. I was known for one thing and I was doing something completely different. So the stars weren't completely aligned with how I was going about it because I was following somebody else's path, actually. I was following what somebody else had laid out and I was just following those steps and it wasn't super successful for me. So then I came to the realization that I'm actually just a one focus person. I like to go all in on my one thing and be all in on it and not do multiple things. So that's when I decided that I probably needed to sell my business. That was my next best step before I looked at anything else that I was going to do. First step, let's sell the business. Then when that question to myself came up, is like, do I want to sell the business? Even though I'd already decided that this wasn't my forever thing, still some resistance came up for me when I said, let's sell the business. I'm like, I don't know about it. So there was one part of me that did want to and another part of me that was just like super resistant. So I had to work through, why was I feeling the resistance? What was that resistance all about? And that's where I identified my identity and my business identity was so closely intertwined that I had to do some work to separate them. So I worked through that. It took time, still taking time. But when I wanted to sell the business and I knew I was at a point where I'd separated it to a point where now I could let go. And so that's when I was like, all right, what is my next step of actually moving into selling? So I started with manifestation, like selling my business. What did that look like? So I imagined what it would feel like to have sold my business. By this date on this year, I have sold my business. It feels like this. For me, it was a feeling of relief. It was a feeling of freedom. It was an acknowledgement of a legacy that could carry on under someone else's stewardship. So these are all of the things that I went through in order to make the step to reach out to another company to ask them if they would like to buy my business. So there were lots of self-reflection, self-examination, sitting with the uncomfortableness and the resistance and working through that, and then moving into manifest what I wanted and what it would feel like on the other side of the sale. And I did that consistently for 30 days. The manifestation practice of, I have sold my business and my life now looks like this. How I feel this. So it was really envisioning what I wanted and then stopping to embrace the feeling of what that would be like. Because unless you can see it and be it, then the manifestation is not going to come true, because you have to already believe it to be true for the manifestation to do its work, to do its job. So I spent a good 30, 45 days with a daily manifestation practice around the sale of my business in order to get the belief that it was true that I had sold my business. And then it happened.
I see, I see how manifestation and co-creating with the universe are key themes for you. And I'm about to ask you, how do you use this concept into your coaching practice? If you have practical tips for our listeners to start manifesting their own goals, you already said 30 days of dreaming and visioning what you want, and then embracing, feeling how it will be like, meaning see it and be it. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, and I think how I've brought this into my coaching practice is, I had one coaching client, did one exercise with this client, and I got her, we used what we call a timeline exercise. So it was about looking at where she wanted to be and in her life and the change that she wanted to make. So it was about going, okay, feeling into yourself, moving above yourself, and then moving along a timeline. And we move along a timeline, we go 1 month out, 2 months out, 6 months out, 12 months out. Now put yourself back into your life. At this point in your life, you have made the change. You're now operating in this mode. You're doing this job. Your business is doing this, whatever they wanted to do. And we're at this point in 12 months from today. What does that feel like? What does that feel like to you? What does your day look like? What are you doing in your business? So we remove you from today and we put you in that future state. And then we take some time to feel into it. How does it feel to be doing that? What exactly are you doing? What is around you? And then once you start talking about that, describing that, you then can relate to the possibility of it. So then that exercise, we finish that exercise, then we come up and we travel back down the timeline. All right, coming back down the timeline, back down to today. Okay, we're back to today. Now, how do you feel about wanting to make this change and wanting to, go down this path and changing your life to doing that thing that you've just described to me? And they're like, now it's almost they embodied that future state of themselves. And so what I've learned about manifesting is you can sit here and make all the wishes and hopes in the world, and that's fine, but that won't change anything. Manifestation to work, and manifestation is about co-creating with the universe and your higher self. It is about believing it to be true. So if you want to make the change, envisage the change, feel what it would feel like if it was true, and then you have to believe it to be true. Just like you know that the sun is going to rise every day, you have to know that that's what you're going to be doing in 6 months' time. It's more than a wish and a hope and a dream. It's about feeling and knowing it to be true, the same as you know it to be true that the sun will rise tomorrow.
When we clear mental and emotional baggage in people, the second they release their limiting beliefs, all of a sudden the vision changes, because it's like going back and just clearing all these garbage, I call them, that we put in our head, limiting us to move forward and operate, like you said, from our higher self with the energy of the universe. When the energy of the universe flowing freely, we can do things so much faster because nothing else is holding us back. The inner critic is not as loud when we have all these limiting beliefs. So you made me think about, for those business owners who are hustling nonstop and feeling overwhelmed, too many hats, what quick wins or mindset tweaks can help them find clarity and improve their work-life balance?
Like one quick tool that I think, well, and not quick tool, but one I think easy change to be made would be every day identifying your top 3 priorities that are going to move the needle to your big goals. And then those are the 3 things that you get done that day before you do anything else. So when we move into our day and we've got a to-do list of 20 things or more, we are instantly overwhelmed and we are instantly just hustling. If we can move into our day and go, what are the 3 things that I must get done today? And those 3 things must be tagged to your long-term goals, and you focus on those, then every day you're going to turn up with clarity on the 3 things that are going to move you closer to your bigger goals. And then you can move on with all the other things on your do-do list. All of the other little bits and pieces that we have to do in our day to fulfill the client work or help a staff member or whatever those other bits and pieces are doing. But I think this really helps you change your mindset when you turn up to your desk and go, what are the 3 things today that I need to get done that will move the needle in my business? And that's where my focus goes first, because where you get focus, everything else is non-existent. And so I think that can be a very quick thing or a really easy tool that people can be doing in their business tomorrow.
Yep, so true. Not running and doing all these tasks that we think are helpful. Meanwhile, they are not the three priorities that going to move the needles, like you say. I really enjoyed this talk with you. Finally, Sandra, how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about your coaching services? Are there any upcoming events or resources you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, the place to learn more about me, I suppose, would be my website, which is sandrajulian.co. It's got information around my services and my coaching. If you wanted to reach out and connect with me, I'm either on LinkedIn or Instagram. Those are kind of the two places that I'll hang out lots. On LinkedIn, I publish a fortnightly newsletter. And I also have a podcast called Business Your Way. So the podcast drops every 2 weeks. Podcast is just more of what we've been talking about here on your podcast today. So we talk about mindset, strategies, and actually doing business your way, paving your own path and not following somebody else's path to get to a more fulfilled life and legacy that you will want to leave behind. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. I'm sure our listeners will gain so much from what you have shared already. For those interested in exploring more, please be sure to check out the links in the show notes here. I'm going to put all your links, Sandra, for your website, your podcast. And thanks again for being here. And we can't wait to see how your work continue to support and inspire others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy. It's been an absolute pleasure being here with you today. Thank you for having me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
If you're curious and want to dive deeper, you are in the right space. I ask you to look within for all the things that you want to do, be, and have. Join me at the Baggage Begun Healing Hearts and Minds podcast with new episodes every Wednesday as we discover the path towards healing and transformation.